Welcome to the Ignite Christian Business Podcast. Today's episode is a session release from the Ignite Christian Business Conference, Ignite 22. Let's get started with guest speaker, Steve Manko.
Thank you, everyone. I've been fortunate to be meeting with Craig and a great group of men every Friday morning for a little over a year, and I heard the excitement from about a year ago with the first Ignite event and saw the excitement and vision that Craig had for this year. So when I got the call from Craig to come and be a special guest speaker, I was very excited and proud of myself for getting on that list. But when I said, Craig, what would you like me to talk about? He said, well, Steve, on our Friday mornings, you're so open about all the failures and challenges and times where your plans don't work out. Come and share that. So if you're wondering how I got on the list, I got on the list because I'm a failure and I talk openly about them. But my testimony really is and has become God doing things through me despite my plans and my poor planning. I think that really has become the testimony for my life. If you would have known me as a kid, you would have seen how shy I was growing up. And in fact, a friend that knows me well refers to me today as an introvert who has learned to adapt. And if I had more time, I could talk to you about the various plans that haven't gone according to what I did, but God has done something far bigger, put me in places I never would have imagined because of circumstances or people that he put in my life. So I'm very thankful for the people and the teaming that he's been fortunate enough, or I've been fortunate enough that he's blessed me with. But today I am here to talk to you about the planning. God's made me in a way that I like to drive results through a well thought through and efficient, well-executed plan. I always have a plan. My family is here with me this weekend, our first trip to Omaha. Guess what? We have a plan for this weekend. But I think I need to talk about the accuracy or lack thereof of my plans. My first plan I can go back to was talking about high school. My plan after high school was to go to college. I was going to be the first generation Manko to go to college. Stephen Manko Sr. was an immigrant from Czechoslovakia that came to America through Ellis Island. Stephen Manko II, my grandpa, had to leave home at the age of 14 with his brother to fend for themselves and ended up working in the steel mills in the East Coast and through the Midwest. Stephen Manko III, my dad, went to Bible school and became a pastor, and Stephen Manko IV was going to be the first generation to go to college. So let's think about that real quick. Isn't that what America's supposed to be? Building upon the foundation of the people that came before you and taught you and sacrificed for you to give you the opportunity for a better life. And I'm so thankful for those men and the sacrifices they made to allow me to do that. So going back, I wanted to go to college. I grew up very close to a small liberal arts Christian school, very close to the home where I grew up. And as we would drive past that on numerous occasions, I would think, boy, I'm never gonna go to that small school close to home. Where do you think I ended up going? Then when I was in college, I'd have a plan. What am I gonna do next after college? Well, the FBI sounded like a pretty good career until I found out you had to move around the country whenever they told you to. Now, I was from Ohio. I thought that was a pretty boring state to be raised in, and I don't like the rain or the snow, but my family was there, and I loved my family, and I was never going to leave my family. So the FBI just wouldn't work out. So I didn't go to the FBI, I went into the business world. Well, guess what happened years later? I moved from Ohio to Honolulu. I moved from Honolulu to Minneapolis, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't move again in my career. And in fact, every winter in Minneapolis, my wife and I pray, God, please move us again in our career. And if you could, make it somewhere warm with no state income tax, but maybe I'm getting too greedy on that one. And yes, you did hear me. I moved from Honolulu to Minneapolis. I don't even think Craig counts that against me as one of my failures, by the way. In my career, before I became the CFO at Skywater, I was working for a consulting firm. And that's actually how I was introduced to Skywater. Skywater brought my consulting firm and I in to help them through some events they were dealing with. And things were a mess. That's why we were there. If things were clean, we wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be hiring consultants. And as I was frustrated with Skywater on that day, I was in their location as a consultant, and I was walking out with a team member, and I said, I would never work at Skywater Technology. I am now honored and privileged and excited to be the CFO at Skywater today. So how do I reconcile all these plans that I have that never seem to go according to what I laid out? So we can look at Nehemiah chapter 2, and we see that God put a plan in Nehemiah's heart that only Nehemiah knew about. So we can say, okay, well, it's biblical to have a plan in place. But I also have to go to the New Testament in James 4:13 and think about, I'm going to paraphrase here, saying, why do you plan so much, and why do you have so much confidence in your plans? You don't even know if you'll be here tomorrow. So that tells me that's a pretty aggressive way to talk about it, about me not being here tomorrow. There will be one day where I won't be here tomorrow. But I think it's just going to show that our plans will always be changing. That's the one thing that we should build into our plan. So as I was still trying to reconcile how to make this work throughout the rest of my life and my planning, again, God blessed me at a time in my life where I was going through another career struggle, and I was very frustrated. And why do you think I was frustrated? Because it wasn't working out according to my plan. He had a man in my life that was our pastor in Minneapolis, and he said, Steve, as a Christian, when you run into a door that's closed, it's okay to try to push as hard as you can for that door to open, but you should not try to kick that door open. That's the balance of when an obstacle or a plan or a change comes into play. And as business leaders and entrepreneurs, you all and we all pride ourselves on being the ones that overcome the challenges. The reason you're successful as an entrepreneur is because you found a way to open a door that someone else couldn't. So push on that door, but don't try to kick the door open, because when you're trying to kick it, that's when God's probably telling you that that door is closed. So it made sense when he told me that. It didn't really resonate completely at the time because I was just so distracted and hurt by my plans not working. But I do use that advice today as I'm planning for my personal life, my family life, or my career. But he said something that did not only resonate today, but resonated when he said it. He said, Steve, you get so shaken when things don't go according to your plan that you get this self-doubt and you don't love yourself. And if you can't love yourself, you can't love your family. And if you want to get my attention, start talking to me about my family and my love for them. And that's my number one priority, which I will not fail at. And if you're going to tell me that I'm going to fail at that, you're going to have my attention. And I need to think about that in the business world. As I put plans in place at Skywater that may not work out, I can't let my distraction and my disappointment impact the way that I treat my teammates, my fellow employees, and the others that I care about. So despite all my failures and all my plans not working out, I have to ask myself, why am I here? Why am I in the positions I am? Why do I have a wife that I don't deserve? Why do I have 4 boys? Why am I a dad of 4? Why am I the CFO at Skywater today? So I ask myself these questions. Why am I a CFO of a tech company? We've seen that technology is a great way to move things forward, but we've also seen where technology has negative consequences. You guys made it up here quicker than I thought. So what am I supposed to do with that? When we're at Skywater developing technologies of the future that are very amazing, am I there to impact and make sure that those technologies are used appropriately? We do work for the government and the Department of Defense. It's very patriotic to do that work, but we've seen that governments can abuse their power. Am I there to influence that and make sure that it's used appropriately? Am I there to impact the way that business is done? We see our personal freedoms attacked on a daily basis on the personal side, but we also see the way that we do business in this country being attacked, whether through climate sustainability or ESG. And in fact, our CEO and I had an opportunity to speak to a subcommittee of the SEC on the impact that climate change has on companies. So how do we address it in those situations? I have to ask myself, do I have a lot to lose or nothing to lose? And that's easy to answer if I think about whether or not I have the earthly or eternal perspective. So as I talked about, and I wish I could talk about more, the importance of teaming and the way that God's blessed me with having people in my life, I want to share that and make sure my boys understand that they need each other, they need people supporting them, and they also need God blessing them and supporting them. So every night I have a ritual with my 2 oldest boys, Christian and Jude, and eventually when Titus and Gabriel get older, they'll come into it. But every night we go up to bed and I say prayers with my boys. And they said that they would only do it if they got to hold the microphone, so Turn around. So every night, the first thing we do is we say prayers with the boys. After we say our prayers, my boys know that I'm going to ask them 2 questions every night. And the first question is, boys, what do you do with your brothers?
Love your brother and protect your brother.
That's right. You love your brother and you protect your brother. I have another question for you boys. Did God give you fear?
No, he give you power, love, and smart mind.
Good job. That's right. So it's important to me that my boys understand 2 Timothy 1:7, that God didn't give them fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. My boys need to understand that they need that support from each other and from God. And as I look around this room today, I see a lot of like-minded business leaders who, like Nehemiah, have a plan that God put on our hearts. And as we execute on that plan, with his eternal perspective in mind, we can have an impact on our country. And just like I focus with my boys on 2 Timothy 1:7, we've been focusing on Nehemiah, weeping for our country, and rebuilding the walls. I can't help but also highlight the similarities that I see between 2 Timothy 1:7 and what I see in Nehemiah 4:14. And I'm going to jump ahead here, but it says, "Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." Ignite, thank you for letting me be here today and speaking with you. And let's fight together for our freedom, our country, and our homes.
I love you.
We want you to be ignited. We'd love for you to join us on the next Ignite Community Call. These happen live on Zoom on the second Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We host a special guest who shares their wisdom and encounters with God over the time that they have followed God in their business. Registration is entirely free, but it is required due to limited spaces. You can register and learn more at ignite-cb.com.